Let's start with a little bit about yourself. So you're a performance director of this amazing installation at Glastonbury this year, and we'll get into the detail of how that worked. But tell us firstly about yourself.
Good. Yes, hello everyone, and my name is Miguel Hernando Torres, that's my full name. I am originally from Colombia. I am an actor and director. I call myself sometimes an interdisciplinary artist because I go from doing some theater work to doing some immersive, digital, visual, also film work. So I cross the boundaries between those. Very much from my background in performing arts. I trained as an actor back in Colombia, and then when I moved to the UK, I specialized in mime. So I am a professional mime. And physical theater is also one of the things I do. Not that kind of mime, but a little bit, yes. I work with a company called Gecko Theater. You may have heard of it, Gecko. So we do physical theater. We were at the National Theater early in January with a play called Kin, which is very much about migration as well. But I've also specialized over the last 15 years in immersive theater. So I've honed my skills in immersive with secret cinema. Hands up if you ever went to a secret cinema event. Yeah, quite a few of you, very good. Secret cinema there. So immersive with secret cinema for about 12 years. From a performance director, performer first, came as a performer, did a few of the shows back in the day. Then I moved into being performance director. And then the experience that I gained through doing the shows led me to become one of the creative directors. So I got to work in shows like Moulin Rouge, Back to the Future, Star Wars. So that's through how we developed that. And that led me to do Rumble in the Jungle with Rematch Live last year. And this year we did Terminal 1, which is why we're here today with you.
Okay, and obviously we have a very educated audience who are very immersed in the arts by the sounds and looks of it. But could you, yes, but could you just explain the distinction between immersive theatre and conventional theatre, or legacy theatre, as Aaron would call it?
Legacy. Well, I think the word immersive is a buzzword, right? We just, an album gets released and we hear immersive. A new exhibition gets released and it's immersive. And I think, of course, the nature of the word means that, yes, everything that we do is immersive. You guys are immersed right now in this environment. However, over the last 15, 20 years, immersive has been developed as its own craft. And I think the main difference between immersive and legacy, or traditional theatre, would be that the audience play a pivotal role in the storytelling. It becomes apparent that it's important to think about the agency of the audience in the experience and to think about their journey. What do you go through? And therefore, you, the audience, become the heroes of the story. In a traditional play, you see it, or even right now, you're observing us, we're telling you a story, we're talking to you, you are connecting with me through things that you've empathized. So those of you who speak Spanish went, oh yeah, I empathize with that person. Those of you who went to secret cinema, oh, you empathize because we got that connection. But in an immersive setting, we want you to be at the core of the experience. So it's very much about you and your journey from beginning to end. So it's similar to when you go traveling. So if you go to a new city, to a new country where you don't speak the language, where it's a whole different culture, every step of that journey that you take marks your experience. And it's the story that you tell at the end when you come back and you say, wow, when I came in, the border agents were really lovely to me. They welcomed me with arms open. I met this driver, he was amazing, and then I went to this hotel and I met these local people. Your journey in that travel experience is your story. And so is in immersive theatre. Whatever you go through, the people you speak to, how much you choose to engage is what determines the story. And that's how it differs from a traditional play, because otherwise you'll be just watching and taking the cues from what you see and how you connect as opposed to what you actually physically experience.
So there's a question of agency. The audience in the immersive context have more agency. You might go to an experience and there are different paths you can choose or different characters that you can go on an adventure or a subplot with. How does that kind of use of audience agency, how is that utilized in the context of Terminal 1 and obviously in a context of mimicking the migration experience where obviously boundaries and agency are something that's quite contested?
Sweet. Yeah, well, Terminal 1, new installation, Glastonbury Festival, we had the space. We also wanted to honor some of the history of Glastonbury welcoming migrants back in 1975, travelers back in 1985 after the Battle of Binfield. Travelers were welcome to create a safe space for them, so honoring that tradition. But also we had design from the old Heathrow Terminal, Terminal 1, and we had some containers. So we just put together this new space. It was this immersive journey that you could go through. It had a print shop, but it also had a stage and a bar. So the space was kind of all interconnected. And the idea was to celebrate migration. So most of us were working in the experience. We are migrants ourselves. We come from different parts of the world. We have very different experiences of how we got here. And so when we decided to shape the experience, one of the things we wanted to highlight was sometimes the difficult parts of that journey when you come into the country. So the choice of how we use the agency was actually, in this particular case, to put you in a position where we take away that agency, where you're still the main person that goes through the experience, but when you step into the experience, we tell you very much that before you make it to the top, you have to answer questions from the Life in the UK test, which is the test that the British government uses to assess our suitability to be or not British citizens. And so most of the time when we ask those questions, people would have no clue of any of the answers. To the point that we had to go to questions like, what's the capital of Scotland, please? And repeat it a few times. So by putting them on that position, actually, that situation very much puts them in a situation which many of us experience when you go and when you're an immigrant. When you come to meet the border officers, you feel very much like your agency has been taken away. Now, of course, this is in the setting of a festival. It's in the setting of an experience that is for about 15 minutes. So it's very clear that it's a choice for the audience to step in. So it's an interesting game because, yes, we're taking it away, yet you're choosing to step into. You are your agency. You've been queuing for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You definitely want to go through. So that's how we use agency in this particular experience for Terminal 1.
And quite an interesting thing to do at Glastonbury or a festival space which is associated with maybe hedonism, letting go, entertainment, to actually choose to put yourself in an uncomfortable experience in an environment that you may well be a little bit hungover or you may well be sensitive, but you'd be choosing to kind of go through something that was challenging and viscerally quite disconcerting. And within that emotional experience, what were the principles that were guiding Terminal 1? Because there was a manifesto to it that started the whole journey and that is underlining the experience.
I mean, the main message of Terminal 1 is no one is illegal. I think as human beings, the very nature of who we are, we're not illegal human beings. We're not illegal aliens. We all were born in this planet, in this earth. Therefore, we're all legal. We have the right to exist. So that's the main message. Then we created a manifesto, which is none of us can take credit for where we were born. None of us can deprive any other human fellows of opportunities and resources just because they happen to have started life somewhere else. And that's it, to hold that feeling in our heart. So whenever we talk about migration, it should come from a place of kindness, of humility, and grace. So that was... thank you. And in so, very much the idea of the experience was to get the audience to kind of live for a moment in their own skin, that uncomfortable feeling that you get when you get asked, not just the questions, but when you have to go through that painful experience of feeling like you are second class or even third class person, where you actually your value of being in this place is not being recognized, it's not being represented. So we get the audience through that. And in terms of the audience, and I probably will jump a little bit on these, most of them, it was great. It was very welcome. Your audiences chose to be there. But it's also very challenging. And also was very challenging because actually, if you didn't answer to the questions correctly, you wouldn't come in. So on busy times, whenever there was like a busy time and the queue was a little bit longer and you got to the front and you didn't answer the questions correctly, you wouldn't be allowed in because that's part of the experience. You're not allowed in, you get kicked out. Also, there were some moments of subjectiveness, of being subjective. I got to play also the different roles. We had a whole team of actors and we were rotating.
Yeah, I'd like to just dig down on that a bit, because the team that you had, you managed to achieve a genuine and very thorough level of like diversity. And the casting process, you went out there and really got into communities so that these values that you created and the process itself was crafted from an international perspective and from people where you actually had to do a lot of legwork to make sure that they were listened to and contributed to the process. So could you tell us a bit about how you did that casting?
I mean, the whole Terminal 1 was staffed by members of Kaiwu Union. So they actually people who work on the bar. They were part of the Cleaners Alliance and Workers Union. They were also part of, we also brought artists from Colombia to take part of the print shop. And when it came to the casting, we wanted to be an international place. We also wanted to find some performers who spoke languages that we're less used to. So we got some performers from South Africa, from Benin, so they could speak languages that we would be less used to, because a lot of people, if I did Spanish, they would understand a little bit. But also, there was one of the containers that was themed around Rwanda. And obviously, we brought artists from Rwanda to curate the whole space. And it was a bit difficult to find actors. Not that there is not a community of actors from Rwanda, but even trying to reach out and connect with them and say, look, we're gonna create this space. We want to get your voice in it. We want you to be the one who choose what we're gonna say in this space. Felt a little bit challenging. Some of them weren't even quite sure. Because again, there is themes that normally get spoken about specific countries, and us as people, like again, I'm from Colombia, so sometimes people wanna talk about Colombia, and I'm like, no, I don't wanna, I know what you wanna talk about, stop it there. So, you know, so the people from Rwanda we don't want to talk about the subject that we probably think you're going to talk about. So they were a bit resistant. And then when they kind of heard about how we wanted to approach it, then they were keen on working with us. We brought also one of them from France, because he's an international artist that's been granted an talent visa in France, so he was able to come with us, and the artist that curated the space came from Rwanda, with the unfortunate event that one of them, in spite of us, Glastonbury, having a special opportunity of bringing artists exclusively for the festival, his visa was denied. So two of the artists who were curating the space, one of them wasn't able to come and represent his own work because his visa was denied, because that's what happens. So part of the legwork was always to make sure that we could have international voices, diverse languages. But I also must say that it wasn't just about, you know, bringing people from the global south or from other countries, but it was very much about the integration with the artists and the production team behind the project, and how we were collaborating to create a space. And I think that's where the power of what we created was. Not just about, yes, we want to talk about migration, so we're all migrants, but it's like, no, we're also people from here, people who are very much aware of the importance of integrating, of collaborating and working with each other to create even stronger pieces of art, to create an even more powerful pieces of immersive theater, of human experiences that could allow us all to have an even better human experience. As humans, connect with each other, because I think we all want to do some of that.
And so, how did you feel that change happen in the audience and in the artists as well? What were the feelings going into it? There's that creative process, and through the experiences of doing it, did you feel conversations change? Did you feel something viscerally shift within the audience or within the performers? What was the effect?
I think for the audience, as I said, for many of them, the end was very moving. So right at the end, people will come out, tears in their eyes, touched and moved by the experience. Again, very short, 10, 15 minutes, but just suddenly feeling the feeling that you get in your body when you are in a situation where you feel dehumanized is not very nice. So that moment for some who had never experienced that was quite impactful. So that was one of those. For the performers, it was for us a bit challenging again, particularly with the room. With the Rwandan performers, because we weren't sure how to approach it, and they weren't sure how we wanted. Like the theme around the Rwanda bill was quite alive at the time, So we just wanted to make sure we approach it from the right place, but it was very difficult to find that middle place. And not difficult in a bad way, just in like trying to get the right tone of voice to make sure that the audience felt connected. And in a way, we allowed the performers and humans from Rwanda to speak from themselves and from their own heart. So it just meant that we had to listen, really. It just became about listening. It became less about us who were kind of in the role of curators or directors to determine what we wanted to say and to kind of step back and go, how do you want to approach this? This is your space. It should be you who speaks from your heart, what works for you and your people and your community.
And I just wondered if you could just very quickly mention the role of other immersive shows that you did. You mentioned Rumble in the Jungle. What was the effect of that, and how did that kind of change conversations as well?
Well, Rumble in the Jungle was for a company called Rematch Live, and we brought to life the 1974 fight between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman that happened in what was then Zaire, today Congo, the Republic of Congo. It was a massive event, the largest televised event of the time. It also included a 3-day music festival with the greatest black artists of the world that came to Zaire to play. So for us, it was an opportunity to create an immersive show of a medium to large scale where the cast was 90% a black cast and a diverse cast, which doesn't normally happen. I've worked in quite a lot of immersive shows, and seeing the amount of diversity in the cast is not very common, but also in the audience. And then to see the audience not just like from all mixes of ethnicities, but also ages. It allows us to bring people who were very close to, or fans of Muhammad Ali coming with their grandchildren. And it was a cross-generational experience as well as cross-cultural. So what it allowed us all, and the way I think that it affected was just allow us to come together around a specific subject, but also the fact itself, the making of it was a very important step, I guess, because we hadn't seen it much in the cultural landscape in London, where immersive theatre is quite well known and recognized.